I have a suggestion. Unless you are superwoman, you can see through walls. Can you see through walls? Yeah. You can see?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're superwoman. This is part 4. Grandfather Bhishma. And Friday evening? Was it Friday evening? Friday evening? We heard lots of interesting things about who is Grandfather Bhishma as a Vasu and so forth and so on. And then on Sunday at the Farmington Hills Temple, we heard how Grandfather Bhishma engaged in battle and disclosed before the battle and during the battle as well how he could be killed, and his being killed by Sikandi. We heard a very complicated story how that happened. And then at the Detroit Temple, part 3 was the battle is over. Yudhisthira has become enthroned as the king. The funerals have been performed, and he is in this devastated state. Krishna tries to pacify him, no good. He stays in this devastated state. They want to go see Grandfather Bhishma, so they come before Grandfather Bhishma wearing the attire of royalty. Yudhisthira is carrying the crown of the king, because he's now the emperor of the world. And Grandfather Bhishma is so happy to see that, because he wanted the Pandavas to rule, although he fought on the opposite side, and we discussed the puzzle about that one. And we also then heard how he pacified Yudhisthira when even Krishna was not able to pacify Grandfather Bhishma, by indicating, first of all, the suffering of the Pandavas, the tribulations of Kunti, and yet Krishna always rescued them again and again and again. They had the favor of Krishna, even though there was difficulty after difficulty. They were protected by God, by Dharma, and by the Brahmanas. So he indicated, this is an overview, he indicated there's no cause for lamentation when you live your life by those 3 principles. Results and outcomes of our duties is in the hands of Krishna. Krishna desired that you become the emperor. You're the emperor, and now people are awaiting you to lead, so do not hesitate. Perform the prescribed duty. And so that's where we ended. And then, inspired by Paramatma, Yudhisthira then asks Grandfather Bhishma, please instruct me how to carry out the duties of being the emperor. What are they and how do I carry them out? So he gets a whole Varnashram lesson and a Bhagavatam class in this circumstance. And here's his instruction. O best among the descendants of Bharata, Yudhisthira, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord, accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord. You must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, now this is his grandson. He's addressing as my Lord. You should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. Now they're rendered helpless by the plan of the Lord, but not helpless. They're not unprotected. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face with eyes as red as the rising sun is smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this material body. Of course, Krishna came. That is one of the reasons why Krishna came. There's many. But Krishna came knowing that that was the wish of his dear devotee, Grandfather Bhishma. Lord Sri Krishna inspired Maharaj Yudhisthira to ask Bhishmadeva about his duties as a king in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee, like Bhishmadeva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, because when the departure of Grandfather Bhishma came, we heard at the beginning of this chapter 9, the whole long list of sages, exalted personalities for the whole universe, came. And it was Krishna's desire that Grandfather Bhishma be the one to speak rather than their being the one to speak. Here's a close-up of this very beautiful painting of Krishna. I just heard a class where Srila Prabhupada recorded class chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada was describing Krishna's form being eternally youthful. Sometimes he described during the Kurukshetra battle he looked like he was 16, Navayogana. Here in this morning class in chapter 2 he looked like he was 20, although he had great-grandchildren and I forget the number, 10 million generation following him. And he said Arjuna looked old, but that's Arjuna. Over on this side carrying the crown, that's Yudhisthira. There's Arjuna and Bhima. Now Arjuna doesn't look old, but these Prabhupada was describing, he looked old. Because this is the end of Dwapara Yuga, where people still lived longer than we live. It's like the beginning of Treta Yuga. Excuse me. Yeah, Treta Yuga. How long did Dasarath rule?
65.
That's a long time, because in that yuga, that's the duration of life in Satya Yuga. So, detail, but the life of Dasarath spanned beyond Satya Yuga into Treta Yuga. Yes? So anyway, Arjuna was a little older looking, although the same age as Krishna by birth, because Krishna's body is ever youthful. Anyway, Prabhupada writes in his purport, Lord Sri Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment. And thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Commonly, in our ISKCON circles at least, Srila Prabhupada demonstrated the same capacity. can read about it, you can even see it in videos. The condition of his body was emaciated, literally skin stretched over his skeleton, because he hadn't eaten for such a long time, and so there was no nourishment going into the body, and who knows what pain the body was in. But the clarity of his Bhaktivedanta purports, that final chapter of 10th canto that he dictated, you can hear the recording of his dictation, it's barely audible, but the clarity is just astounding. And it wasn't by reading commentary and then expressing the commentary according to the audience that he knew he was addressing. It's just Super Soul was dictating and he was speaking. He was the instrument. So Krishna wanted to demonstrate that with Grandfather Bhishma as well as with Srila Prabhupada. So we have this chronology that we observed all over ISKCON. We observed Gita Jayanti, and after speaking Gita for 18 days there was the battle, and after the battle was completed, the funeral arrangements were made for all the kings and soldiers on the battlefield. Maharaj Yudhishthira was installed as the emperor, and then he went through this phase of feeling extremely guilty and filled with remorse over all the circumstances that had taken place. His thinking was, because of me, this mass killing has taken place, so I can become king. How horrible, what a wretched person I am. That was his feeling. It was very similar to the feelings of Arjuna before the battle. Because of that humility and the compassion, Krishna tried to pacify. Krishna wasn't able to pacify, and Grandfather Bhishma successfully pacifies and then gives instructions. So we're going to skip the instruction section. It's massive in Mahabharata, the Bhishma Parva section, because one of the main functions of Mahajan is to show by example and by precept the codes of Dharma. Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta. The Mahajans are meant to be persons who teach principles of Dharma, so it's replete in Mahabharata. It's only succinct here in Srimad Bhagavatam, and now I'm going to read what happens when the Makara Sankranti time comes. The Makara Sankranti is estimated by the solar calendar because it's connected to movements of the sun. And Gita is connected to the movements of the moon, so it changes from year to year. But the movements of the sun don't change from year to year. When Arjuna, so he starts to, I'll just read. While Bhishmadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. So it's chapter 8 Bhagavad Gita describes this, when the sun moves in the northerly direction. Now, I didn't learn this from science. I was science and math kid. What's your best subject in school? Math? The next was also science, right? Yeah? Math and science, they go together. Usually they go together. So, here's, I'm going to just, this is what I've understood from Vedic cosmology. The sun I'll do this. This is just interesting. In the 5th canto Bhagavatam, there's what appears to be a contradictory statement. Well, the contradictory statement is the movement of the earth in relation to the sun is clockwise, and the movement of the sun in relation to earth is counterclockwise. And so Shukadeva Goswami says, Maharaj Pariksha says, huh? He says, first you said this, then you said that. Can you explain? It sounds contradictory. It's a really far-out example that Shukadeva Goswami gives. He gives the example of a potter's wheel where the potter's wheel, if the potter's wheel is spinning very quickly in a clockwise direction, and there's an ant on the potter's wheel, it's moving in a clockwise direction. But simultaneously, the ant can be walking very slowly in a counterclockwise direction. So it's both moving in a clockwise and a counterclockwise direction. Similarly, in relation to the earth, the sun moves within 24 hours from one place and then comes back around to the next place. That's like the potter's wheel's movement. So the sun is like the ant, is moving very quickly in a clockwise direction. So here's the earth, there's the sun, and as the earth spins from, what is it, east to west, it's the potter's wheel spinning. So in relation to the earth, the sun is moving quickly. That's the ant on the potter's wheel. But at the same time, the ant may be moving counterclockwise. So the sun is moving counterclockwise once a year. It sounds like, boy, this is really primitive. What kind of an answer is this? But it's sophisticated, just using it's an example a child can understand. So it goes like this. Here's the Earth planet. Have you ever gone through the exercise of, over a period of time, watching where the sun rises one morning, where the sun rises the next morning, where the sun rises the next morning? Have you ever done that? I've done that. I was with Sadhaputta teaching the VIHE. We would chant up on the rooftop of the Gurukul building. And he pointed out to me, this morning the sun is rising over here. But when we started the course, it was rising over here. Now it's moving in the southerly direction. Because it was Kartik time, so it's moving in the southerly direction. But when January 14th comes, it starts to move in the northerly direction. So here's what happens. If you're in the northern hemisphere, and we are, the sun at the topmost position is where the days are longest and the nights are shortest. I can't recall the, what's it called? The summer solstice. And then the sun starts moving in a southerly direction, from whatever it is, June 21st or something. Starts moving in a southerly direction. If you watch, the rising of the sun is moving in a southerly direction. It's moving in a southerly direction. If you have an Apple Watch like I do, you can say, when is the sun going to rise tomorrow? I can tell you when the sun, so it keeps changing. Every day, it's a minute to a minute to 2 minutes difference every day. So now we're moving in the southerly direction, and when the days and the nights are equal, it's called an equinox. And then it goes down, 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 till it gets to the southernmost part. That's the winter solstice, or Matra Sankranti. And then the sun starts moving in the northerly direction. Up, 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 up. And it's just like clockwork. So according to 8th chapter Bhagavad Gita, yogis who are mystics that they have the power to leave their body when they want to leave their body, they leave Makar Sankranti time, or for that period where the sun is moving in the northerly direction. Prabhupada explains there, in that 8:24 Bhagavad Gita, devotees don't have to follow that principle, because the devotee's consciousness is on another plane than a yogi's consciousness. The devotee can leave at any time because their consciousness is absorbed in Krishna Bhakti. So they continue Krishna Bhakti after the body is left behind. The yogi has to do this calculation thing. So Grandfather Bhishma was a perfect devotee. So we'll hear Prabhupada explain this in one of his purports. But he was setting an example for the yogis, because he also knew the yoga system, and so he chose to leave when the sun started moving in the northerly direction, although he didn't have to. Thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings, and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking, and being completely free from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined. So he's a Vaikuntha Vasi, Grandfather Bhishma. Now, there's a distinction between, in general, Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam may be speaking of the same subject matter, like Grandfather Bhishma's passing, and in Mahabharata he returns to the position of being a Vasur. In Srimad Bhagavatam he returns to the position of going back to Godhead. Just like in Mahabharata, the Pandavas, when they died, they all did some bad things, and they had to go see hell and they went to heaven. In Srimad Bhagavatam, they return to the spiritual world in the self-same bodies. So now, when you come across something like that, how do you deal with it? Here's what our acharyas teach us. Mahabharata is teaching us primarily principles of Dharma. And those that follow the codes of Dharma get the fruits of following the codes of Dharma, and vice versa. Srimad Bhagavatam is teaching the principle of Shuddha Bhakti, from beginning to end. And therefore, the Pandavas went back to Godhead, and Grandfather Bhishma went back to Godhead. Even Putana went back to Godhead. So, that's the emphasis. So, between the two, if there's some discrepancy, it's like the lower court and the higher court. The final authority for us is Srimad Bhagavatam, and the message of Mahabharata that's like these other ones, it's not entirely discrepancy in this manner, but it's teaching Dharma and the consequence of Dharma and Adharma. That's its emphasis. Jiva Goswami explains there are three parts in the whole of Mahabharata that emphasize the Shuddha Bhakti principle. One of those is Bhagavad Gita. Another is the Vishnu Sahasranama. And the third is the Narayaniya section of Moksha Dharma. I'm not so familiar with it, but he refers to it. And if those of you that attended the Farmington Hills class, you may remember the father of Satyavati, he's described in this Narayaniya section of Moksha Dharma, and during one yajna, which also Indra participated in because he was a very elevated king, he had the capacity to take part in yajnas where Indra was also a participant. When the Supreme Lord Vishnu came to receive the offerings, this king could see Vishnu come from the fire and receive the offerings, and no one else could see because of the quality of his devotion. Specifically, it's mentioned like that. It's mentioned in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, one of the purports. So there's the Bhagavatam is emphasizing the special maturity of Dharma is Paradharma, that's unalloyed devotion. Mai chananya yogena bhakti or avyabhicharini. Avyabhichari bhakti or ananya bhakti. That's perfection. Paradharma is the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning to end. That's the mature stage. And one who isn't yet at that mature stage, they must follow Dharma. They must. And it can, especially in the association of a Paradharma Vaishnava, can carry one to Paradharma. That's Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what we're doing right now. We're hearing about Grandfather Bhishma, but in this case, Grandfather Bhishma is one who wants to fix his mind completely upon the personality of Godhead. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet remain the object of my attraction. So he wanted Grandfather Bhishma knew the yoga system. So that the Ashtanga yoga system, he's going to end up in Samadhi. But before he gets to Samadhi, there's Pratyahara. Like people that go to yoga classes, they learn asanas and pranayama. They generally don't get taught yama and niyama. But that's about it. And because it makes them feel good and they're more peaceful, and that's what they're looking for. But the Pratyahara stage is what Grandfather Bhishma is doing. He's withdrawing everything, his mind, the extending of his senses into the world is being withdrawn, consolidated within. That's the Pratyahara stage. It takes great mental concentration and power, but he has that capacity. He can extend because he's been asked to do some service by Yudhishthira. But now he's deciding, I'm ready to leave. I want to fix my mind on the personality of Godhead, seeing His beautiful form. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. I'm good without it. Yeah, thank you. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped. And he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body. So he didn't become unconscious, his senses are withdrawn from active activity for this pratyahara state, but his mind is totally focused, and he's going to speak. Let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending on the material world, although from him only the material world was created. Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. So this is his meditation and prayer. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of a tamala tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results. Now he's seeing Krishna's form standing before him, and his meditation is going to the battle scene. So I really like this. On the battlefield, where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, with the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hooves of the horses, and because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana, and while there he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. Then this verse. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on that battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just like a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So we discussed this. This was at the Farmington, this beautiful painting, award-winning painting. The upper garment is flowing behind him. His face and hair are ashen due to the dust raised by the hooves of the horses. Beads of perspiration are going down his face. Wounds on his chest from the arrows of Grandfather Bhishma, with the chariot wheel of Arjuna raised, ready to smash Grandfather Bhishma. That's his meditation. While Krishna is standing in front of him, that's the image that's in his mind's eye. It's Shivaras rasa. It's the secondary rasa. When his worshipable Lord, he is in dasya rasa, and he loves being in service to the Lord, where the Lord enjoys his arrows and the Lord enjoys getting ready to smash him. He enjoys, it's the greatest ecstasy for him. That's his meditation. May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. Like, that's horrible, but he's lovely. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip on his right hand and a bridle rope on his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. So there's the answer to the question people sometimes ask, what happened to all those soldiers? Their Swarup, their spiritual form. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajabhumi. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his appearance from the rasa dance. Now, there's some images here depicting this. There's the image of Krishna charging with the chariot wheel. Arjuna trying to hold him back, but we can hold Krishna back. Captured in the close-up of this, the ashen, the sweat, the blood smeared on his body. Parthasarathi, Krishna is the chariot driver. His concentration upon the damsels of Braja. Prabhupada comments, after his disappearance, that's the verse. Prabhupada's comment is, Bhishma's aspiration to remember the gopis is a prayer to have their mercy at the last stage of his life. Now this is Canto 1. You know, way over in Canto 10 we hear details about the rasa dance and the elevated position of the gopis. But there's mention in Chapter 8, Queen Kunti's prayers, the exalted position of Mother Jasoda. Here, Bhishma's commenting on the exalted position of the gopis. Where their minds were so absorbed in thought of Krishna that when Krishna left, that due to separation, to go to the capital city of Mathura, they were just absorbed in the acting out the pastimes of Krishna. So many nice descriptions like this in 10th canto. At the Rajasuya Yajna performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So, not only he was worshipped, but the elder great soul, Grandfather Bhishma, was given the privilege to name the greatest personality in the assembly, and he stood up and he roared with joy Now he gets to say to the whole assembly the glories of Krishna, which irritated and agitated Shishupal too much. Couldn't take it. The love and affection with which bind the Lord and the devotee are exhibited in the case of Bhishmadeva. Bhishmadeva never forgot the Lord in this transcendental feature as Parthasarathi, and the Lord was present personally before Bhishmadeva while he was passing to the transcendental world. That is the highest perfection of life. So, Grandfather Bhishma, it's very clear he is definitely going to the spiritual world, to the Vaikuntha realm. Although it was 100% certain that Bhishmadeva was approaching Vaikuntha Dham just after leaving his material body, still, as a humble Vaishnava, he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord. For after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore. A Vaishnava is not puffed up, although the Lord guarantees his pure devotee entrance into his abode. So the emphasis here, in Prabhupada's explanation, is the loving reciprocation between the two. And in the course of their exchanges, it may have appeared at times this very puzzling position where Grandfather Bhishma took a vow that he was going to kill the 5 Pandavas, or the vow is specific, he'll kill Arjuna. He fought on the opposite side against the Pandavas and Krishna. So how can a devotee do that? We discussed this. There's an explanation given. Did anybody not hear that and would like to hear the explanation? Why? Okay. There's many reasons. Here's 2 of many reasons. One, Prabhupada writes, right in the purport of this chapter 9, Krishna wanted to show, no matter who you are, how exalted you are in this world, in estimation of the people of this world, if you do not protect women, you're finished. Krishna wanted to show that. Just a little sharing as I'm saying this. Some years ago, some devotees in New York from Guyana, they raised some funds for establishing a temple in Guyana. And bought deities for the devotees, and so the president of Guyana came to that function, the temple opening. And I was invited to go, so I went. And so when it was his turn to speak, the president of Guyana, and he spoke 2 things, 3 things. How important it is to protect women. That was really good. And I don't know on what basis he was speaking those words, but it was a very strong message. He spoke another nationalistic message. The message was, our young people, we need to improve the quality of the education for our young people and encourage our young people to stay and help make the country great, this kind of national. Because most educated young people in Guyana, they go off to the States and earn their livelihood because they can earn more money from the States. But he was encouraging this nationalism. And it was the education of the children and protection of women. Nice message for a Hare Krishna devotee audience. But that was one of the reasons Krishna wanted to show, so he was showing through Grandfather Bhishma. And the other is a little more esoteric, and that is, I touched on it, but in nectar devotion, you familiar? There's 5 primary rasas, and there's 7 secondary rasas. 5 plus 7 is 12 rasas. So of the primary rasas, Bhishma's was dasya, but there was a secondary rasa that Krishna enjoys, and that is chivalry. It's one of the 7. So Bhishma was going to be in the position of assisting Krishna to enjoy chivalrous rasa. And because Krishna was enjoying chivalrous rasa, he as his servant was enjoying chivalrous rasa. So to have chivalrous rasa, he has to be on the opposite side. So he took the position of being on the opposite side for an apparently dharmic reason, which is a subordinate dharma reason to a higher dharma reason. So the subordinate dharma reason is he was being maintained by the royal family. Being maintained by the royal family, it was then his duty to assist the royal family. So he fought with the royal family, although he knew their cause was unjust. So that's the higher principle. You don't fight for an unjust cause because you're being maintained by an unjust person. But he's the knower of Dharma. He just, overlooked that principle in order to be on the opposite side. But that was the apparent or ostensible reason for being on the opposite side. But it was the esoteric reason is to assist Krishna in his happiness of enjoying chivalrous rasa. You read Nectar Devotion and you'll find that when secondary rasa rises, it seems to eclipse or cover the primary rasa. It doesn't. The primary rasa is primary rasa. It's the primary rasa. It's the primary rasa. But the secondary rasa seems to take the place or supersede or eclipse. So during that secondary rasa, that's what's prominent. But it's done in the mood of service. And then when the secondary rasa subsides, the primary rasa is still there, because it's the primary rasa. So he was giving Krishna pleasure. And Krishna was giving him pleasure. By having the opportunity to give Krishna pleasure, he was experiencing pleasure. Demonstrated when Krishna came charging with the chariot wheel, he dropped his weapons. Because what he wanted, he wanted to demonstrate that Krishna holds the principle of protecting his devotee above everything else, even his own word, which is the principle of Dharma. So many things going on. Because by Krishna's will. All of it was going on by Krishna's will. But looking at it on the outside, it's like, huh? Okay? Bhishmadeva, as a pure devotee of the Lord, entered the spiritual realm in one of the Vaikuntha planets where the Lord, in his eternal form of Parthasarathi, predominates over the unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. Now, there's no battle of Kurukshetra for Krishna to be the chariot driver of Arjuna. But nonetheless, that relationship is an eternal relationship. So it doesn't say exactly what it looked like in the Vaikuntha realm, the Parthasarathi feature, but it's clear. His eternal form of Parthasarathi predominates over the unconditioned living beings who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. At the exact time when the sun began moving in the northerly direction, Bhishmadeva, by his will, gave up his body. That's the sun rising in the northern direction, you just can't tell. So there's lots of sections. We could spend lots of time going over those meditations of Grandfather Bhishma, and what to speak of the instructions to Yudhisthira on varnashram duties. Lots of very important, valuable, practical instructions found there. Literally just briefly summarized in the Bhagavatam. Any discussion? Yeah.
Maharaj, on the third last slide, sorry, first and foremost, really wonderful class, Maharaj, really grateful to you. Here,
This one or the one before?
Yeah, this one. There are two questions which are actually very similar. So the first one is...
He wants to give you the microphone so it can be recorded.
Maharaj, does this verse or this explanation means Bhishmadeva has a Swarupa in the Vankata rather than going to the Golok Vrindavan, because that's considered to be the topmost planet?
Yeah, it is, why not? Where did Prahlad Maharaj go? Vaikuntha or Goloka?
I thought he went to the Narsimha.
Huh?
I thought there is a planet of Lord Narsimha where he went there.
In where? In Vaikuntha.
Okay.
What's the problem?
No, just verifying that.
The devotees of Ramchandra, where did they go? Goloka or Vaikuntha?
Just clarifying Maharaj in terms of the understanding, maybe. Is that his Swarupa form? That's why he went
Yeah,
there?
that's his short form. What's the problem?
Just clarifying Maharaj.
Okay.
There is one more similar question on that, Maharaj. On the, I think, second or third slide, where Bhishmadeva is referring to Krishna, he is talking to Yudhishthira Maharaj and he asked four-handed form of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, he's a Vaikuntha-vasi. The Lord shows the form according to the love that one has of the Lord. And he's a Vaikuntha-vasi.
Thank you for clarifying. One more question, Maharaj.
Okay.
When we talk about Bhishmadeva participating in this Leela to give one of the secondary seven rasas,
Yeah.
if we compare that with an example of gopis where Krishna was having a headache and he was asking for the dust of his lotus feet and they were willing to give the lotus feet, for that they were willing to go to hell.
Yeah.
And here Bhishmadeva is willing to take that counterpart.
Out of love.
So can we consider him also on the same platform as gopis, because he is also trying to...
It's the same principle, but it's not the same kind of love. It's the same principle. Sacrificing for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Whatever it means, for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Same principle. Over here.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. I'm just contemplating on your point of Bhishmadeva displaying one of the seven rasa, which is chivalry. But in my mind, Krishna was not fighting in the battle.
That's okay.
So how come the chivalry?
Krishna was positioning himself when Bhishma was trying to fire the arrows to hit Arjuna. Krishna was moving like this and hit the arrows. And his vow was to kill Arjuna, who is Krishna's dearmost friend. Now consider that his dearmost, someone who is one's dearmost friend, is more valued more than one's own life. One will sacrifice one's own life to protect the life of the valued one. That's chivalry. Vow to kill Arjuna. That's chivalry. and moving the chariot dexterously so the chariot isn't harmed and Arjuna isn't harmed. It's combative. It's a competition. It's a contest. It's chivalry.
Thank you, Maharaj. I got it.
Okay. Over here.
Thank you, Maharaj. In the slide before, it says if someone is he desired to see the beautiful face of the Lord, for after quitting the present body, he might not be in a position to see the Lord anymore.
I can't explain that. Because he's going to go to Vaikuntha, so he's going to see the form of the Lord. I can't explain it.
Okay. I was just thinking, is it in relation to somebody not going to Vaikuntha, or
I don't know. I can't explain it.
Sure. Thank you.
Maharaj, I have two questions. The first one is, can you mention any other pastime where the secondary rasa predominates the primary rasa from Bhagavatam?
I'm sure that there's, if I thought a little bit about it, I'm sure that there's some passages in Ramayana that sure you could think of some also. Because there's lots of spirited things going on. Lakshmana many times would take a position opposite that of Ram and Ram. He wasn't arguing against him, but he was so fired up to do something, and it was clear, he was asking because he knew Ram didn't want it. He was asking for permission or a sanction. And just Ram's word, okay. I have to think some more about it, but that's something like that.
Can I ask a second question, Maharaj? Krishna, we say, is a bhavagrahi Janardana. He looks at the intention. And when we look at Bhishmadeva's pastime, even though he was taking the side...
Even though what?
Even though Bhishmadeva was on the side of Kauravas, does the Bhagavatam mention what his consciousness or intention is during his entire support for the Kauravas? Was his heart or consciousness behind the Pandavas or something like that?
I don't know any reference that speaks on that. Your question specifically, is there any statement to that effect or on that topic? I don't know of any statements on that topic. He was fulfilling Dharma. He's part of the royal family. He's not going to marry. So he's part of the royal family. He's fulfilling the function of the royal family. Yes.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned that Bhishmadev decided the time of his death as per his will. So is it one of the Ashta Siddhis like Lakima?
It's a benediction given to him by his father.
Oh, benediction.
Right?
Okay.
Remember? Santanu. Santanu was a very powerful personality. Before he was Santanu, he was a demigod. And he got cursed to take birth.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a beautiful class. You said Krishna wanted to show the importance of protecting women. It's a beautiful thing for me to hear that yes, as women we are being protected and taken care of. But in today's
I knew
world...
there's going to be a but. Go ahead.
But in today's world, when both men and women are given equal rights and status, it looks very difficult to expect from the men to do this. It's tough because we are being a competitor for them as well as, but at the same time they have to protect us too.
Yeah.
So how can being a man or a woman, like we implement this in the reality?
Having qualified men and qualified women, or one qualified man and one qualified woman, then you can have it. So it's a sword that cuts both ways. It's an edge on both sides. In one lecture, I was present, I heard Prabhupada say, the reason the women have moved in this direction of equal rights is because the men are not qualified. If the men were qualified, if the men literally and properly gave respect and protection, we wouldn't have this women's rights movement. It's because the men are not qualified. So that's one side. And then the other side is what you're saying, if the women are not qualified, how is the man going to give protection? Because it's both have to be qualified. So your question specifically is how to have this happen in our modern circumstance. Well, young men have to be trained, and young women have to be trained. Because otherwise, untrained, they'll be products of their times, and it won't happen. It won't, to a degree, perhaps. But to a degree means there's always going to be the compromise, because neither the man nor the woman, then bring them together, are qualified. So neither are satisfied. The woman is not satisfied in being protected, and the man is not satisfied with a woman that is simply wishing to be under the protection. They don't understand the role and the function, and what's the outcome when that role and function are met. Because they're not trained. So you can get an approximation of it to some degree, but not the full degree. I'm thinking, in response to your question, that this wonderful exchange that takes place when the solar eclipse and the queens all come to Kurukshetra and they meet Draupadi, and the ladies have time with the ladies. And they ask Draupadi, how do you do it? Do you put something in their food, or these are lions? And she chastises those that make that suggestion. It's earning mistrust. You can't it's just by service. She earned and was able to bring peace and satisfaction to 5 tigers, lions, whatever, among men. And because of her mood of service. Although she, in her own right, was so qualified to be, of Kshatriya spirit. There's this nice description when Yudhisthira became the emperor. She was like the temple commander. She was going around making sure everything was going on right. She's a Kshatriya spirited lady. Jayadratha. She's a powerful lady. But she knew how to control that power and direct it. So that was her qualification. That was what she explained to the queens in detail. So a qualified female can help bring the good quality of the male, and vice versa. The good quality of the male can help bring the better quality of the female. If the male exactly the kind of person who is qualified. It brings the better quality from the female. She feels more contented and safe and happy being protected, not being taken advantage of, but being protected. It brings the best from the female, it brings the best from the male. The more the quality is there, you get closer.
Thank you.
We have a couple of hands up.
I was going through this for several years, when you were mentioned about this Bhishmadeva passing, he just waited for Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita purports that a devotee need not to wait for the sun to travel to the northern sphere.
Exactly.
So, in all of our culture, like the samskaras, practicing all these things are also, not important when it comes to bhakti, or because I'm not a devotee like so and so, so that means I may follow this, I may follow this samskaras or all the rituals, whatever it is. So is it something that we have to depend utterly on bhakti process, not considering all of the facts here?
I'm not clear what your question is. Are you?
Maharaj,
Are you clear what your question is?
Yes, Maharaj. When Bhishmadeva is passing, the timing is exactly like coming from South India, a lot of people will practice this. Not giving importance to bhakti. After coming into bhakti also, there are some versions of, okay, because we are not sincere devotees.
Are you asking when one becomes a pure devotee, is it okay to also observe details and procedures and rituals and dharmic practices? Is it okay? Or is it not okay, we should just ignore them and forget them? That's your question.
Yes, ma'am.
And the answer is, the high level will start to go down a little bit. There are certain ones that are not to be neglected. That's in Bhagavad Gita. Yajna, tapa, etc. Not to be neglected, because now I'm an exalted person, I can do whatever I like. Not to be neglected. And those things that are accepted, whatever they may be, they are to be accepted with the mindfulness that Krishna is to be pleased by this. I'll give a little example. Just a while ago, there was a baby shower, the Western thing. So it's one of the sanskars. It's right in the Gopal Bhatta Goswami procedures. So now, Prabhupada didn't give that to us, but it's in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. So we observed it. And one of the things that was done was, according to Gopal Bhatta, there are a couple of items that bear auspiciousness, and one of them is a porcupine needle. And in the absence of a porcupine needle, then there's certain types of a leaf. And when the pipes of a leaf are attached to one's hair, so the priest was not like one of the ritual kind of priests. He did that. I was like, what's that? So if we're going to do that, or any other ritual, then it's for the pleasure of Krishna. Or to assist one in the mindfulness of, for the pleasure of Krishna, we're doing this. And if you're in the mindfulness of doing for the pleasure of Krishna, you can do or not do. Like Prabhupada didn't give it to us. Because we might become more attached to the ritual than the mindfulness of pleasing Krishna. So he gave us the pleasing Krishna principle again and again and again and again. So were we being neglectful? Was he being neglectful because he didn't give it to us? Or those that do, are they being ritualistic instead of bhakti-oriented? Well, if you do, whatever you do, yat karosi yadasnasi madarpanam. That's the spirit with which you do rituals or things that you accept. I'll give like another little example that's like from my upbringing in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada never taught us mudras when doing deity worship. And you go to the Mayapur Academy, it's one of the things you learn is mudras. Now, supposing somebody does mudras, or supposing somebody doesn't do mudras when doing deity worship, are you wrong by doing or wrong by not doing? You're not wrong by doing or wrong by not doing. And if you're doing, you do for the purpose of, there's a consciousness behind it. There's no fault in doing, there's no fault in not doing. Provided, in either case, provided the consciousness is the path to Krishna to please Krishna, the bhakti principle. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Back in the corner.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm not qualified to ask this question, but I'm curious. Bhishmadeva, he is known as a Mahajan, is that correct?
Yes, he's one of the 12.
One of the 12. And I wanted to know, is there a parallel in Mahaprabhu's Leela with the Mahajan? And I just wanted to know if there's a Mahajan in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela and pastime.
I'm thinking if there's anything that I've come across from our acharyas that address that topic. The only thing that comes to mind is that in Gora Leela, everyone in Gora Leela has their counterpart in Krishna Leela. Like, Prahlad Maharaj is somebody, and Grandfather Bhishma is somebody, and each of the Mahajans is somebody in Gora Leela. But it's not emphasized like that. These are 12 Mahajans in Gora Leela.
Okay. The mood is different. Is that the reason?
Say it again?
Is it because the mood is different?
No, it's just the emphasis is different. I mean, that is to say, even the 12 Mahajans, this is a Bhagavatam statement that connects with a Mahabharata statement. The Mahabharata statement is the Yaksha coming from the lake, saying, yes, it's true that understanding Dharma is very complicated. One must understand it through the example of the Mahajans. And then it connects with the Bhagavatam statement. But it's not that there aren't other Mahajans in all of existence, but these are the universally accepted Mahajans authorized by the Bhagavatam. But when Prabhupada speaks about this, it's not only the 12. Mahajana Yenikata Sapanta, it's great souls. Mahajana means great souls, great personalities. Or Bharata Shreshtas, Krishna. Prabhupada was explaining that Krishna wanted Arjuna to be such a person. He was equating the Shrestha term to the Mahajan term, and Krishna wanted Arjuna to be an example-setting person, like the Mahajans are example-setting persons. 12 plus.
And of course, so thank you Maharaj. I'll keep striving.
I see someone raising your hand up.
How come Bhishmadeva went to Vaikuntha instead of Goloka Vrindavan?
Because he's a Vaikunthavasi. Krishna knows our desire and he reciprocates with our desire. Krishna isn't going hey, wait a minute, how come you want to go to that place instead of my place? Because they're all his place. Vaikuntha is his place too. Where Parthasarthi, that eternal form, is exhibited. That's his. Right? Is that okay? You know the Bhagavad Gita verse? Ye tamam prapadyante tan sadaiva prajamyaham. You know that verse? No? Bhajan. Bhajan, you know the meaning. Devotional service, bhajan. You know, sit down and have bhajans. So as you have bhajan towards me, as you have regard or devotion towards me, Krishna says, I reciprocate. So he's reciprocating. He didn't send it to the place he didn't want to go, he sent it to the place he wanted to go. He didn't show form, he showed his four-armed form because that's the form that Grandfather Bhishma likes. So it's what he showed.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Maharaj, the first canto of Bhagavatam is titled as Creation. I was wondering how to understand the contents being presented as principles of creation. No technology, nothing of that sort is being described.
There must be some document somewhere that explains, or a teaching somewhere that explains the basis upon which Srila Prabhupada gave the headings for each of the cantos. I'm not familiar with the reasoning behind that. The only thing I can think of is from the very first verse, that is Krishna is the source of everything. That paradharma is to know, janmadyasya yataha, to know that from which everything comes. So, creation in that sense, and everything means everything, the spiritual and the material. Krishna is the source of everything, spiritual and material, in that sense. Not the details of how the creation unfolds, but the absolute truth, the source of everything, paratattva. That sense, that's the only thing I can think. But if there's some explanation given why Prabhupada used those headings, I'm unaware. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.